He's just a good boy, that's how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good boy. You know who else is a good boy?
Hello.
Hello, Britta!
my
Ah,
Yeah.
you match the color of the couch.
Yeah.
She blends in.
It's camouflage.
Macy, look.
Dog be dog.
Macy, look. The puppy.
Ugh,
He's like, what?
I can't look at that flat surface for too long.
You don't care.
Marat said, do not wait for me. So,
No Allison either?
well, I haven't heard from her.
Hello.
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 Yeah.
All right, ready, guys? Everybody's Paris. You are a shithead. You wake up in a palace with a bow and arrow and a beautiful wife who hates you. What do you do?
To be fair, she also hates herself.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Hates
dude.
you and herself. Good addendum.
She's gotta knock it off. She's gotta hate herself a little. Like Paris has gotta hate himself a little bit. She's gotta hate herself a
Yeah.
little less.
Helen needs a little Lizzo
Agreed.
in her life.
Yeah, she does.
Today, after we're done with today, we're halfway through.
Woo.
It's kind of exciting.
It is kind of exciting.
A long journey. The Trojans storm the rampart.
Oh, they storm them.
The title spoils again what happens in the chapter.
Is this the horse?
No,
There is no horse in this book.
there's no horse in this book.
That's in the sequel.
It's actually not in any book that we have. It's lost.
It's in the
Extended
Lost
lore.
sequel.
Yeah, it's
Whoa.
in the sequel. We only know about the horse because people like
Do it.
philosophers wrote about it. So like people wrote book reports on a book that we don't have, and that's how we know about the Trojan horse.
Wow.
And it's mentioned briefly in the Odyssey, and that's it.
I did not know that at all. I learned so much in the first minute. I'm so
Mhm.
ready.
Always do.
Yeah.
Yes, educational podcasting.
We could
Oh.
play Among Us and name ourselves the characters.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'd probably be Dolan because I
I'd
would
do that.
die immediately and be scared the whole time.
Does someone want to give us a recap of what happened last time? In the
Allison, I
chapter?
don't believe this is your job.
Yeah.
Agamemnon had a day of glory, by which we mean half an hour of glory.
And then he got hurt.
And then he got hurt, and then
Guys, he got a cut on his
Hector
arm.
came in,
You
right?
need to. Yeah, Hector
The
came in.
gods
and
were
was
like, hey, Hector, hold off until Agamemnon's out of the way. And then Hector came in and started killing people. And then,
it was Ajax, right?
yeah,
And Odysseus.
they're just like people going back and forth, killing a bunch of people, then killing a bunch of people on the other side. And then a lot of people were dying, and then the doctor got injured and they brought him off, and Achilles was like, hey, that's my bud, the doctor, and like sent his friend Patroclus down and was like, Patroclus, go see what the deal is with my doctor friend. Did he get hurt? I'm so sad. And then everybody was like, Achilles, you literally could go fight for us. Don't be sad. Just do a thing.
And he's like, no.
He's like, I don't want to. I'm still mad at you.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, well, okay, but if Achilles doesn't want to do a thing, at least let him send Patroclus in to do a thing, because like we're all literally dead and dying here, and you've been sitting on your ship for 6 days, like just chilling, having a vacation.
So yeah, the Trojans storm the rampart. I'm gonna start with mispronunciations right out the door. So unlike a lot of chapters, this ends exactly where the last one left off. Vis-a-vis Patroclus is helping out like another friend who is injured. And so under shelter now, Menœtius' fighting son, Patroclus, was healing Eurypylus' wounds. But hordes of men fought on, so they're still fighting, the Achaean and the Trojan infantry going hand to hand. The archived trench could not hold out much longer, nor could the rampart rearing overhead, the wide wall they raised to defend the ships, and the broad trench they drove around it all. So they built a big trench, and then behind the trench built a wall, and then they're all hiding behind the wall. So there's like a big ditch and then a big wall. So it's even harder to climb because it's like even taller. So the next bit goes into like a little bit of a cutaway. Way back when they built the wall a few chapters ago, Poseidon and a few other gods were really mad because they didn't like ask the gods for help, and they didn't sacrifice anything to the gods when they built the wall. So we get a bit of a flash forward here. After the war is done, the gods destroy the wall. That's basically it, but I'll read it through because it's kind of funny. They never gave the gods the splendid sacrifice the immortals craved, that the fortress might protect the fast ships and the bulking plunder heaped behind its shield. Defying the deathless gods, they built that wall, and so it stood there steadfast no long time. While Hector still lived, and Achilles raged on, and the warlord Priam's citadel went unstormed, so long the Achaeans' rampart stood erect. But once the best of the Trojan captains fell, and many Achaeans died as well as some survived, and Priam's high walls were stormed in the 10th year, and the Argives set sail for the native land they loved, then, at last, Poseidon and Lord Apollo launched their plan to smash the rampart, flinging into it all the river's fury. All that flow from the crests of Ida down to the breaking surf, the Rhesus and the Heptaporus and the Carasus and the Rhodius and the Granetius and the Aspasis and the shining god Scamander and all the other rivers. In Samoisis's tides, where tons of oxhide shields and horned helmets tumbled deep in the river silt, and a race of men who seemed half god, half mortal. The channels of all these rivers, Apollo swung them round into one mouth, so he just like picks up these rivers and puts them together, and for 9 days hurled the flood against the wall, and Zeus came raining down, cloudburst powering cloudburst, the faster to wash that rampart out to open sea. The earth-shaker Poseidon himself, trident locked in his grip, led the way, rocking loose, sweeping up in his breakers all the bastion's strong supports of logs and stones, the Achaeans prized in place with grueling labor. He made all smooth along the rip of the Hellespont and piled the endless beaches deep in sand again, and once he had leveled the Argives' mighty wall, he turned the rivers flowing back in their beds again, where their fresh, clear tides had run since time began. So, in the years to come, Poseidon and the god Apollo would set all things to rights once more. So don't worry, guys. The wall's gonna go down after the war. But now, back to the present. The war. The deafening crash of battle blazed around the strong-built work, and rampart timbers thundered under the heavy blows as Argive fighters, beaten down by the lash of Zeus, were rolled back, pinned to their beaked ships in dread of Hector, the invincible headlong terror. All right, so he is fighting for a little while. So Hector lunged into battle, rallying cohorts now, spurring them on to cross the gaping trench, but his own rearing stallions lacked the nerve, so the horses don't want to go into the trench.
Very reasonable.
They balked, whinnying shrill at the edge, the brink, a dead stop, frightened off by the trench so broad the team could never leap it, not at a single bound, nor could they plunge on through with any ease. Steep banks overhung its whole length, jutting up on either side, and topped by stabbing rows of stakes, planted there by the Argives, thick-set and huge to block the enemy's onslaught. No light work for the teams that trundled chariots, churning massive wheels to make it through in stride, but the Trojans strained to bring it off on foot. So Polydamas stood by headstrong Hector, warning. So we get quite a few Trojans who, like, we know not as well, but that's fine.
Hector and all our Trojan captains, allies in arms, it's madness to drive our teams across that trench. Impossible to traverse it. Look, the sharp stakes jutting right at the edge, and just beyond that, the Achaeans' sturdy rampart. No room there for charioteers to dismount and fight it out. The strait's too narrow, cramped. We'll take a mauling there. I see it all. If mighty Zeus, thundering up on high, is bent on wiping out the Argives, down to the last man, if he longs to back our Trojan forces to the hilt, by heaven I hope the Father works his will at once, and the Argives die here, their memory blotted out, a world away from Argos. But what if they round on us? If the Argives roll us back away from the ships, trapped and tangled there in the yawning trench. No runner, I tell you, pressed by an Argive rally, could struggle free and bear the news to Troy. So come, do as I say, and let us all unite. Drivers, rein your horses hard by the trench. The men themselves, armed for assault on foot, we all follow Hector, all in a mass attack. And the Argives, they cannot hold their line, not if the ropes of death are knotted round their necks.
So he's like, I'm a genius. The horses won't cross. Let's get off the horses and walk.
Smart dude. Knows how to
Always
think.
thinking.
So smart. So Polydamas urged. His plan won Hector over. Less danger, more success. And down he leapt from his chariot, fully armed, and hit the ground. Each man shouted out commands to his driver quickly. Rein the team by the trench, good battle order now. And the fighters split apart in closed ranks, marshaled in 5 battalions, captains leading each. So the captains are led by Hector, Polydamas, Cebriones, Paris, Aeneas, who's in the Aeneid, and then Sarpedon is also there. Sarpedon becomes important later on in the chapter. All you need to know now is that he's the son of Zeus, and Zeus loves his baby boy. So they start walking toward the wall over the trench. Now, shield against oxhide shield, wedging tight with a wild rush, they charge the Argives, who are still there between them and the wall, head on. Never thinking the Argive line could still hold out, they'd all be hurled back on their blackened ship hulls. So all the Trojans and famous friends in arms embraced Polydamas' plan, the faultless chieftain. But Asius, captain of armies, Hyrtacus' son, refused to leave his horses there, with a driver reining back, and on he drove at the fast trim ships, chariot and all. The fool, vaunting along the hulls with team and car, but never destined to slip past the deadly spirits, never to ride in glory home to windswept Troy. Sounds like someone's knocking on this door. I think it's a ghost.
Spooky.
Paris.
She never came back.
Oh no.
Who's
Too
gonna
spooky.
lead us through the
This is a
classics
spooky
now?
start to our podcast.
No.
So,
Okay, I'm back. I don't know why, but there was literally a blue jay pecking at the door.
Wow, someone was knocking.
he
Yeah.
wants to join our
The
podcast.
wildlife wanted in.
Yeah,
Ah,
crazy. Okay. So Asius is like, the plan is to get off of our horses. Nah, I'm gonna ride my horse right at the wall. Screw you,
bold move, Asius.
the fool. Now left of the ships he sped, where Argive ranks would head home from the plain with teams and cars. Here Asius flogged his team and chariot hard. Nor did he find the gate shut, the bolt shot home, not yet. The men still held them wide, hoping to save some comrade fleeing the onset, racing for the ships. Straight at the gates he lashed his team, hell-bent, his troops crowding behind him, shouting their war cries, never thinking the Argive line could still hold out. They'd all be hurled back on their blackened hulls. Idiots. The book just, like, it's so funny. The commentary that they throw in.
Is
Yeah.
that Homer or Fagles?
It's for sure Homer, but I like Fagel's choice of words.
Imagine if Fagels just like added in shit talking.
There in the gates they found 2 men, a brace of 2 great fighters, lion-hearted sons of the Lapith spearmen, one Perithous' offspring, rugged Polypotis, the other Leonidas, a match for murderous Ares. Both warriors planted there before the towering gates rose like oaks that rear their crests on a mountain ridge, standing up to the gales and driving rains day in, day out, their giant roots branching, gripping deep in the earth. So these 2, trusting all to their arms, their power, stood up to Asius' headlong charge and never shrank. On the Trojans came, straight for the rock-tight wall, raising rawhide shields and yelling their lungs out. Grouped under Captain Asius, Iamenus, and Orestes, and Asius' own son, Adamas, Thune, he's still kicking, in Onymos. The Lapiths had just been rousing Argives packed behind the rampart. Close in a ring, defend the ships! But soon as the Lapiths saw the Trojans storm the wall, and cries broke from the Argives, lost in sudden panic, then the two burst forth to fight before the gates like wild boars, a pair of them up on the hilltops, bracing to take some breakneck rout of men and dogs, and the two go slanting in on the charge, shattering timber round about them, shearing off the trunks at the roots, and a grinding, screeching clatter of tusks goes up, till a hunter spears them, tears their life out. So the clatter screeched from the gleaming bronze that cased their chests as blows piled on blows. So they're fighting for all they were worth. And then Asius, down more at the bottom, in the middle of all of this crazy fighting, Trojans, helmets and bossed shields clashing, ringing shrilly under the blows of boulders big as millstones, and now with a deep groan and pounding, both thighs. Ugh! Asius, son of Hieractus, cried in anguish.
Father Zeus, so even you are an outright liar after all. I never dreamed these heroic Argive ranks could hold back our charge, our invincible arms. Look, like wasps, quick and pinched at the waist, or bees who build their hives on a rocky path. They never give up their hollow house, they hold on, keep the honey hunters at bay, fight for their young, so these men will never budge from the gates, though they're only two defenders, not till they kill us all or we kill them.
But his wailing failed to move the heart of Zeus. It was Zeus's pleasure to hand the prize to Hector.
He did kind of like neg Zeus while trying to get help from him.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of negging. It's kind of just how to get shit done. You're such a liar. And he's like, yeah, so.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it, so.
Now, squad on squad, Squad on squad, gate to gate. They fought. Gate to gate they fought. But how can I tell it all? Sing it all like a god. The strain is far too great. Everywhere round the wall, the surging inhuman blaze of war leapt up the rocks. The Argives, desperate, had no choice. They struggled now to defend the ships, and the gods were cast down in spirit, all who had urged the Argive soldiers on in battle. But the Lapiths still kept fighting, slaughtering on. There Pirithous' son, the rugged Polypotis, skewered Damasus, pierced his bronze-sided helmet. None of the bronze plate could hold it, boring through the metal and skull, the brazen spear point pounded. Damasus' brains splattered all inside his casque. Polypotis beat him down, despite the Trojan rage. Then Pylon and Ormenius killed and stripped them both, and the tested veteran Leonidas speared Hippomachus, gouged Antimachus' offspring down across the belt. Then drawing his long, sharp sword from its sheath, he rushed to the front and took Antiphatus first with a quick thrust, stabbing at close range. He slammed on his back, sprawled along the ground. Then Menon, Orestes, Iamenus, Leontius killed the lot, crowding corpse on corpse on the earth that rears us all. While the Lapiths, my God. Lapiths.
Yeah, I keep thinking lapis lazuli.
Honestly, they're kicking so much butt. They're basically Lapiths.
Yeah.
Could you try to could you imagine having to memorize, like, I know it's a lot to have to memorize, but like specifically like fighting the details of the fights?
I know.
I could imagine being like an actor or storyteller and like having to make up what happens. Like,
I know, and there's so many scenes, and just
Yeah.
like remembering when this person gets stabbed and this person dies and whatever.
Yeah.
Was it like everyone just like sat down and listened to this whole story in one sitting,
No,
or like pieces?
definitely pieces, and like this is only
This
one
would be like a day event.
Yeah. This is like one piece of a much bigger story too.
Well, yeah.
But the way that I understand it is that it's kind of like the bard would come into town, and for like a few days he would tell a story, and like every night he'd tell a piece of a story, and you'd get to like sit with your family and listen. But I don't know like how much of it they'd get through. I mean, it takes a long time. I know that we're stopping to talk about it, but still it takes like an hour for every chapter.
Yeah. Or like how much is like how much would have been omitted? Is this an amalgamation of every single one of those
Right.
tellings?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine what I figure of this is that it's almost like his notes, because no one wrote them down, but Homer just
Yeah.
happened to write them down. So it's almost like maybe he's a really bad bard, so he just wrote all this down to remember it. I don't know, but like they have to have been different because, like, even if we've all seen the same movie, we all tell it differently and remember different details and whatever.
Yeah.
Just like you can see in our side series, according to Marat.
Important plug.
We just did a
Lots of-
Twilight one. It's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
coming.
You're gonna love it.
Great.
Starring Belle and Jim.
Oh my god. Amazing.
Yeah,
Marat's on Club Gym.
Club Jim.
What? Is that Charlie?
Word.
Oh my gosh. Wow, I can't wait. Okay, great.
Think of Team Edward, so he said Club Jim.
I'm Club Jim.
I too am Club Gym.
Oh, wow, I love it.
He saw the first Harry Potter one and he was like, "This is so embarrassing." And I was like, "Oh, do you want me to take it down?" Because like, he's like, "No, I love it, but it's like so embarrassing." Like, okay. Merch. All right, so lots of death happening. While the Lapiths stopped to strip their kills of their gleaming gear, the fighters trooping behind Polydamas and Hector, the greatest force, the best and bravest, grim set above all to breach the wall and torch the ships, still halted up at the trench, torn with doubt. For suddenly, just as the men tried to cross, a fatal bird sign flashed before their eyes. This was mentioned a couple times that the psychics read the flight of birds. So instead of like reading tea leaves, they read bird flight. Now, this one's super mega obvious, but they also take a page to explain it to us, but it's okay. So they see this bird, an eagle, which is the sign of Zeus, flying high on the left across their front, clutching a monstrous bloody serpent in both talons, still alive, still struggling. It had not yet lost its fight. Writhing back to strike, it fanged the chest of its captor. The snake bites the bird in the throat while the bird's flying with it. And agonized by the bite, the eagle flung it away to the earth, dashed it down amidst the milling fighters, loosed a shriek, and the bird veered off along the gusting wind. The Trojans shuddered to see the serpent glistening, wiggling at their feet, a sign from the storming Zeus. And Polydamas stood by headstrong Hector, saying,
Hector, you always seem to attack me in assembly, despite my good advice. Never right it is for a common man to speak against you, king. Never in open council, and God forbid in war. Our part is always to magnify your power. Well, once again, I am bound to say what I think best. Stop the attack. Don't fight them at their ships. All will end as the omen says, I do believe. If the bird sign really came to us, the Trojans, just as our fighters tried to cross the trench, that eagle flying high on the left across our front, clutching this bloody serpent in both its talons, still alive, but he let the monster drop at once before he could sweep it back to his own home. He never fed his nestlings in the end. Nor will we, even if we can breach the Argives' gates and wall, assaulting in force, and the Argives give round, back from the ships will come, back the way we went, but our battle order ruined. Whole battalions of Trojans left behind and killed. The Achaeans will cut us down with bronze to save their fleet. So, a knowing seer of the gods would read this omen, someone clear in his mind and skilled with signs, a man the Trojan armies would obey.
His helmet flashing, Hector wheeled with a dark glance.
Enough, Polydamas, your pleading repels me now. You must have something better than this to say. But if you're serious, speaking from the heart, the gods themselves have blotted out your senses. You tell me to forget the plans of storming Zeus? All he promised me when he nodded in assent. You tell me to put my trust in birds flying off on their long wild wings? Never. I would never give them a glance, a second thought. Whether they fly on the right toward the dawn and sunrise or fly to the left towards the haze and coming dark. No. No, put our trust in the will of mighty Zeus, king of the dauntless gods, deathless gods, and men who die. Bird signs? Fight for your country. That is the best, the only omen. You, why are you so afraid of war and slaughter? Even if all the rest of us drop and die around you, grappling for the ships, you'd run no risk of death. You lack the heart to last it out in combat, coward. But if you hold back from the bloody foray here, or turn some other soldiers back from battle, winning him over, you with your soft appeals, at one quick stroke my spear will beat you down. You'll breathe your last.
It's so funny to me because Zeus sends signs. Like, he's like, you're listening to birds? I only listen to Zeus. But Zeus
It's like, but Zeus was speaking to us
yeah.
through the birds.
Was he though?
Like pretty mean about it too.
Yeah, he was also like, I'm gonna kill you. You
Yeah.
better behave.
Stop talking about birds, man.
Bird signs.
Seriously,
Against
bird
fate.
signs?
Shouting, Hector led the charge, and his army swarmed behind with blood-chilling cries. And above their onset, Zeus, who loves the lightning, launched from Ida's summits a sudden howling gale that whipped a dust storm hard against the ships, spellbinding Achaean units in their tracks, handing glory to Hector and Hector's Trojans. Inspired by the signs and their own raw power, all pitched in to smash the Achaeans' massive wall. They tore at the tower's outworks, pulled at the battlements, heaving, trying to pry loose with levers the buttress stakes. Achaeans first drove in the earth to shore the rampart up. They struggled to root these out, hoping to break down the Achaean wall itself. But not yet did the Argives give way to assault, no. They stopped the breaches up with ox-hide shields, and down from the breastwork heights they hurled rocks at the enemy, coming on beneath the wall. So they're standing on top of the wall and like throwing rocks down at the Trojans now. But the Trojans are just attacking the wall itself, so they're very close. And the two Aeneades ranged all points of the rampart, calling out commands to spur their comrades' fury. Now cheering a soldier on, tongue-lashing the next, if they marked a straggler hanging back from battle. Friends, you in the highest ranks of Argives, you in the midst and you in the rank and file, we cannot all be equal in battle, ever. But now the battle lies before us all. Come, see for yourselves, look straight down. Now let no fighter be turned back to the ships, not with his captain's orders ringing in his ears. Keep pressing forward, shouting each other on. If only Olympian Zeus, the Lord of Lightning, grants us strength to repel this Trojan charge, then carve a passage through Troy's high walls. So their cries urged on the Achaeans' warlust, thick and fast as the snows that fall on a winter dawn, when Zeus, who rules the world, brings on a blizzard. Then they explain snow for a paragraph. Thick and fast as a blizzard, they volleyed rocks from both sides, some at the Trojans, some from Trojans against the Argives, salvos landing, the whole long rampart thundering under blows. But not even now would the Trojans and Prince Hector have burst apart the rampart's gates and huge bar, if Zeus, the master strategist, had not driven his own son, Sarpedon, straight at the Argives. Strong as a lion, raiding crook-horned cattle. Quickly, Sarpedon swung his shield before him, balanced and handsome, beaten bronze, a bronzesmith hammered out with layer on layer of hide inside, and stitched with golden rivets round the rim. That splendid shield he gripped before his chest, and shaking a pair of spears, went stalking out like a mountain lion, starved for meat too long. And the lordly heart inside him fires him up to raid some stormproof. Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel like I get worse at reading the longer I do this.
Same.
Stormproof, bold, to go with the sheep. And even if he should light on herdsmen at the spot, guarding their flocks with dogs and bristling spears, the marauder has no mind to be driven off that steading, not without an attack. All or nothing, he charges flocks and hauls off bloody prey, or he's run through himself at the first assault with a fast spear driven home. So now the heart of Sarpedon, stalwart as a god, impelled him to charge the wall and break it down. So Zeus sends his own son to break down the wall. He quickly called Hippolochus' son.
Glaucus, why do they hold us both in honor? First by far with pride of place, choice meats and brimming cups, in Lycia where all people look on us like gods? Why make us lords of estates along with Xanthus' banks, or along the Xanthus banks, rich in vineyards and plowland, rolling wheat? So that now the duty's ours, we are the ones to head our Lycian front, brace and fling ourselves in the blaze of war, so a comrade strapped in combat gear may say, not without fame, the men who rule in Lycia, these kings of ours who eat fat cuts of lamb and drink sweet wine, the finest stock we have, but they owe it all to their own fighting strength, our great men of war, they lead our way in battle. Ah, my friend, if you and I could escape this fray and live forever, never a trace of age, immortal, I would never fight on the front lines again, or command you to the field where men win fame. But now, as it is, the fate of death awaits us. Thousands poised to strike, and not a man alive can flee them or escape. So in we go for attack. Give our enemy glory or win it for ourselves. That's sad.
Glaucus did not turn back or shun that call. On they charged, leading the Lycians' main mass. And Peteus' son, Menesthius, cringed to see them. So we're going to skip a little bit. Basically, Menesthius gets the Ajaxes, both big and small, to come and help on like the closer fight. He sends a messenger, then Ajax and smaller Ajax come down to help the fight. Telamonian Ajax is the larger Ajax. And Telamon's son was the first to kill his man, Sarpedon's comrade, Epicles, great with heart. He brought him down with a glistening, jagged rock, massive, atop of the heap behind the rampart's edge. No easy lift for a fighter, even in prime strength, working with both hands, weak as men are now. It's not the first time that Homer has like made fun of men today for not being able to lift heavy rocks.
It's a weird flex. It's like,
Gotcha.
back in my day, all the men could lift rocks.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
If you only knew, as we read the words now, how many men are going around lifting rocks.
It's like, what? No one lifts rocks anymore.
I thought that was going to be universal forever.
Yeah.
Way to make his audience feel bad, too. Like,
Yeah, speaking of negging, he's just constantly negging the audience.
Any
Yeah.
lifters in the crowd? No? Okay.
yeah.
Weird.
He's getting back at them for when they booed all those Nestor parts.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
So this big rock that you could never pick up, giant Ajax hoisted it high and hurled it down, crushed the rim of the fighter's four-horned helmet, and cracked his skull to splinters, bloody pulp. And breakneck, down like a diver went the Trojan, plunging off and away from the steep beetling tower as life breath left his bones.
That's an intense one.
And
I don't like that.
I know. Glaucus next, the one that Sarpedon spent so long talking to. Hippolochus's brawny son was scrambling up the wall when Teucer's arrow winged him from high aloft, just where he saw his shoulder blade laid bare, and stopped his lust for battle. Down he jumped from the wall in secret, fast, so no Achaean could see him hit and bellow out in triumph. So he gets hit, but he doesn't want anyone to know. He's just like, I'm okay, and just like shuttles away. Soon as he noticed Glaucus slipping clear, the pain overcame Sarpedon. But even so, he never forgot his lust for battle. He lunged in with a spear at Thestor's son, Alcmaeon, stabbed him, dragged out the shaft as the victim, caving into the spear's pull, pitched headfirst, and his fine bronze armor clashed against his corpse. And Sarpedon, climbing the rampart now with powerful hands, wrenched hard, and the whole wall fell away. Planks and all, and the rampart stood exposed, top defenses stripped. Sarpedon had made a gaping breach for hundreds.
Uh-oh.
Just like clawing at it with his hand?
You just grabbed it, pulled it down.
Those big, meaty, handsome hands. Just
Wow.
Beautiful hands.
Maybe if the Achaeans prayed to Zeus when they were building the wall, it wouldn't have come down. Just saying.
Just like,
that's what
Nobody
you get
thinks
for
about these things.
that's what you get for relying on Big Rock alone.
Yeah, seriously.
but, so Sarpedon walks in there. He's like, yes, rah! But Teucer and Ajax, aiming at him together, shot. Teucer's arrow hitting the gleaming belt that cinched his body shield round his chest. But Zeus brushed from his son the deadly spirits. Not by the ship's high sterns would his Sarpedon die. He's got plot armor too. Ajax lunged at the man. He struck his shield, but the point would not pierce through, so he beat him back in rage, and he edged away from the breastwork just a yard. Not that Sarpedon yielded all the way, never. His heart still raced with hopes of winning glory. Whirling, shouting back to his splendid Lycian,
Lycians, why do you slack your fighting fury now? It's hard for me, strong as I am, single-handed to breach the wall and cut a path to the ships. Come shoulder to shoulder. The more we've got, the better the work will go. I don't know why I made him whiny, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It does kind of sound like a camp counselor, though. It's like, if we all pick up the litter, it'll be clean in no time.
Yeah.
So he called, and dreading their captain's scorn, they bore down fiercer. Is that really how you say it? Fiercer? I feel like I'm missing a syllable.
Technically, it's more fiercely.
More fiercely.
Fagels doesn't know grammar,
Wow.
doesn't understand intensifiers. Typical Fagels.
Enemy of the podcast.
Oh, no.
A fool.
You can't just call out the translator as an enemy of the podcast.
Wait, is
That's
Robert
it. We're getting a different translation.
How old is this? Translation.
I believe.
Wait, what?
What, 1990?
Oh,
Oh, so he's not dead.
Probably not, but, I don't know.
friend of the podcast.
1990, he thought it was okay to just be like, Helen's a bitch and a whore, and I hate her.
Yeah.
Like,
Kind of enemy of the podcast.
Okay, yeah.
enemy of women.
And,
Kind of like a JK situation.
yeah. I really could have done more research. I just like this translation because it's easier to read than other ones, and I think it's got better details. I should have looked more, though, because there's some that are done by women and are more modern, because this is still 30 years old. So some of them probably would have been even better. But we're halfway through. We're 6 months in. We're not going to stop now. Where was we? Fiercer. More fiercely. Massing round Sarpedon now, but against their bulk the Argives closed ranks, packed tight behind the wall, and a desperate battle flared between both armies. Lycian stalwarts could not force the Achaeans back, breach their wall, and burst through to the ships. Nor could Achaean spearmen hurl the Lycians back clear of the rampart. So they're at a stalemate, like kind of right at the wall. Once they made their stand, as two farmers wrangle hard over boundary stones, measuring rods in hand, locked in a common field, and fight it out on the cramped, contested strip for equal shares of turf, so now the rocky bastion split the troops apart, and across the top they fought, hacked at each other. Chopped the hawk sides round their chests, the bucklers round and full, skin shields, tassels flying. Many were wounded, flesh ripped by the ruthless bronze, whenever some fighter wheeled and bared his back. But many right through the buckler's hide itself. Everywhere, rocks, ramparts, breastworks swam with the blood of Trojans, Argives, both sides. But still, the Trojans could not rout the Argives. They held tight as a working widow holds the scales, painstakingly grips the beam and lifts the weight and the wool together, balancing both sides even, struggling to win a grim subsistence for her children. So he's like, they're fighting so strong, it's like a widowed poor mother trying to win food for her starving babies by selling what little wool she can gather off their like one sheep. It's like
Oddly specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, Homer, what was your past like? What have you been up to?
You all right? So powerful armies drew their battle line dead even. We know, you've given us like 8 metaphors. Till at last, Zeus gave Hector, the son of Priam, the greater glory, the first to storm the wall. So Sarpedon made the hole in the wall, but no one's made it through yet. But Zeus is going to give that to Hector. Hector loosed a piercing cry at his men.
Drive, drive, my stallion-breaking Trojans. Reach the Achaean ramparts. Hurl your fire now, a blazing inferno of fire against their ships.
So he cried, driving them on, and all ears rang with his cries. And a tight phalanx launched straight at the wall, brandishing sharp spears, swarming with bastions as Hector grappled a boulder, bore it up and on. It stood at the gates, huge, blunt at the base, but spiked to a jagged point. And no 2 men, the best in all the whole realm, could easily prise it up from the earth and onto a wagon, weak as men are now. Not even 2 of today's weak men could pick up this rock.
Probably take like 10 now.
Yeah. Inflation.
Yeah. Muscle inflation.
Also deflation.
Yeah.
But he quickly raised and shook it as Zeus, the son of Kronos, with Kronos' twisting ways, made it a light lift for Hector all on his own. So it's really Zeus doing the heavy lifting. As a shepherd lifts a ram's fleece with ease, plucks it up with a hand, no weight at all to him, so Hector raised the rock, bore it straight for the doors that blocked the gateway. Powerful, thick-set, the pair towering up with 2 bars on the inside, crossing over each other, shot home with a bolt to pin them firm. Planting his body right in front, legs spread wide, his weight in the blow to give it total impact, Hector hurled the rock at the gates, full center, smashing the hinges left and right, and the boulder tore through, dropped with a crash, and both gates groaned and thundered. The door bars could not hold. The planking shattered up in a flying storm of splinters under the rock's force, and Hector burst through in glory, his face dark as the sudden rushing night. But he blazed on in bronze, and terrible fire broke from the gear that wrapped his body, 2 spears in his fists. No one could fight him, stop him, none but the gods, as Hector hurled through the gates, and his eyes flashed fire. And whirling round, he cried to the Trojans, shouting through the ruck.
The wall! Storm the wall!
They rushed to obey him, some swarming over the top at once, others streaming in through the sturdy gateways, Argives scattering back in terror, back by the hollow hulls, the uproar rising. No way out, no end. And it ends in an M dash like Emily Dickinson.
Oh,
Singer.
brutal.
For real.
I like
That's a lot
that,
of. That's a cliffhanger
yeah.
for sure.
I like the last line, the wall, storm the wall, as if that wasn't the whole chapter.
Yeah, right. Like that was
Seriously.
literally all they were doing.
Mhm.
Man. Does Hector kill Patroclus because he's like Achilles, and he's like, I'm not Achilles.
Well, that's a good guess.
I literally don't understand why he's just like, that's my son, I love him, I'm gonna help him out. That's my bud, I love him, I'm gonna help him out. But he's like, just pick like 20 guys on each side and they're all fighting each other.
Yeah, and he just
What's
likes
the
them
goal?
all at the same time.
Yeah, I think I've lost sight of the end goal.
I
It's just fun fight.
That's
I
kind
guess.
of like this is an anti-war story, and
Yeah.
part of the message is like it's madness. People are dying for basically no reason. The heart of the whole thing is a woman who, to the Greeks, doesn't matter. Like she's a woman, who cares? But it's just like a hissy fit over a girl. It's like high school, like
Yeah.
one girl. But they started this war, and thousands of people have died over this.
But then, like the gods, like they just want is it just entertainment for them? I guess is because I don't get their motivations.
They're like, I think they're like the popular group.
They're the
Like, I
plastics.
feel like Helen and Athena have a vested interest. They're like really, really offended by Paris.
Hera and Athena, yeah.
Yeah.
They were offended because Paris was the one who gave the apple to Aphrodite in exchange for Helen, and he gave it to Aphrodite over Hera and Athena, and so they're just like mad at Paris.
As he said they weren't pretty enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he chose so poorly because Hera was like, "I'll make you the king of Europe and Asia Minor. I'll make you the king of all of it." That was Hera's thing. And then Athena was like, I'll make you like just the smartest warlord ever, which is like a fine second place to being king of Europe, but whatever. And then Aphrodite's like, I'll get you the prettiest woman on earth. And he was like, that one.
Because I'm sure like the power that comes associated with being the king of everywhere is not like compelling to potential brides.
Right? Yeah, he could literally anyone.
But then, like,
Yeah.
Aphrodite's like, hey, this is objectively the most beautiful girl in the world.
Yeah.
Bad choice.
So then it's like, who is on whose side? Ares is just like Aphrodite's fanboy. So he's usually fighting for the Trojans, for instance. Zeus kind of just hates his wife, so he's usually against the Argives in some way. But then Thetis, who's Achilles' mom, got Zeus to do her bidding for a little while. It's like trying to figure out who started World War I. It's just like a bunch of hectic nonsense.
Yeah.
But even like just specifically Zeus, like it doesn't seem like he knows what he wants.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
him
That's
specifically,
what
he's
I'm
got
feeling.
very like he's got a lot of promises that he wants to keep, and he's just trying to figure out how to do them all at the same time, and it's not really possible. But he's like just kind of fucking around because he's also
Yeah.
the king of the gods.
Zeus's main goal right now is to help Achilles' mom, and her plan is to make Agamemnon apologize even better, basically. She's very mad at the beginning because Achilles is very mad from the very first chapter. And so all that this is doing is hurting the Argives, so that they are even more mad at Agamemnon than they already are. And they more want Achilles, so that when Achilles finally does come back, it's like even better than it would have been. So like in the end, he's on the side of the Greeks, but he's really on the side of Achilles.
Seems like he's just in it to make the coolest heroes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Wants to like make
He's
people
just-
really cool so that he can hang out with them later, I guess.
Yeah.
I really liked in the beginning of this chapter how basically they were like, by the way, in like 20 years, this wall's going to get torched by the gods and like nobody cares and nobody's going to care about any of these people that are dying and nobody's going to like remember.
Yeah.
Like your war and your human interests are literally meaningless compared to the like scale of Earth and the gods.
Yeah.
But
Seriously.
yeah, keep dying and making all your wives cry or whatever.
Right. I mean, that's like the silly thing. It's like they're playing with Barbies, you know? Like, none of
Yeah.
this really matters to the gods.
And the only wife who actually wants their husband to die, it hasn't happened yet. Like,
Yeah. Poor him. Agamemnon's wife wants him to die, though. That's in another sequel. We can talk about that after. We can do like a "Where Are They Now?" After we finish.
nice.
Yes.
But yeah, she's really mad because he sacrificed his own daughter to get to Troy in the first place.
Wow.
That would be kind of frustrating.
Agamemnon sucks. Cancel Agamemnon. He's a bad guy.
Yeah, all scholars agree that Agamemnon sucks.
Let us know in the comments below. What's the heaviest rock you can lift?
20 pounds. How weak are men these days?
How weak are men these days?
But how weak men are today. And like. And subscribe. And ring
the
that
bell. Ring that bell.
Ring that bell.
Don't put up a wall between you and us.
Yeah.
We'll rip it down with our bare hands if we have to.